Welcome into another edition of the Sports Edge podcast. I'm your host, Commissioner Dan Sanzik, joined as usual by two-time champ Justin the Guru Eisner. Guru, what a weekend we had in the Sports Edge Fantasy Football League. Is your heart still racing? And have you finally figured out who's in and who's out of the playoffs?
Yeah, but clearly I showed off some math skills yesterday. That was after a long Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, sweating it out. I mean, what a league! It couldn't have it
Yeah,
lived up to the billing. The last day that the last weekend, we were talking about how close it was, how close it could be. I mean, it couldn't have been any better. What a week!
it delivered, and we had a lot to get to, so we'll dive just right into the Week 14 action. We'll start with the highest scoring matchup of the season. Kess and Steve both scored over 160 points, but it was Jamar Chase who went off and outscored Rico Dowdle on Monday night. And as a result, our pod nemesis, Steve Curtis, your 2024 Sports Edge Fantasy Football League regular season champion. Steve pulled off the rare worst to first feat, finished 10th last year, first this year. That has actually been done once before in Sports Edge Fantasy Football League history. I assume you know who pulled off this feat before?
My gut is that it was Dwyer.
It was Bill Dwyer, of course. I think that was 2016, 2017. I don't have it noted, but he finished 10th and won the league regular season anyway the following year. I have a little Sports Edge trivia question for you. Robbie and Cass have never won the regular season, so that means eight of us have. And of those eight, which team has the longest drought since winning the regular season title? So obviously it's not Steve because he just won it. So I'm asking you of the other seven that have won the regular season, whose regular season title is the most in the past?
All right, my gut was right on the first question with Dwyer. My gut on this one is that it's me.
It is not you because you I can't believe you've forgotten this about yourself. Hathaway won the regular season the last 2 years. You won the regular season the 2 years before that.
Okay.
So you are not even close to the answer.
Guess I'm not even close. Yeah. The
Uh, the
Commish.
Co-
Second guess.
no, also not the Commish. The Commish won the regular season in 2019. The answer is our current champion, John Zanzarella,
Yeah,
who has
okay.
not won the regular season title since 2011.
Wow. I guess he keeps sneaking in and winning after sneaking in, right?
Hard to
That's
believe. Yes, yes.
underlying part of that question that we had to remember was he keeps winning as a low seed.
Yeah. See, I'll tell you what, all year you've been great on these trivia questions.
Yeah, that was
It
a bad
took
one.
until this one for you to really fumble all over it.
Yeah, I've been doing really
You
well, like surprisingly well.
instincts to guess yourself was like you were on the right track there because more often than not you are the right answer to these trivia questions. But I had a feeling you weren't going to be guessing Zans, but the answer was Zans. We move on. With Steve's win, Walsh is relegated to the number two seed and was, regardless of what happened in his matchup with Hoban, he won kind of a tight one, 110 to 102 to improve to 10 and 4. It's the second time Walsh has won 10 games in the regular season. The last time he did it was in 2015 when he won the regular season. Should be noted that Walsh did not have the stones to start Jalen Waddle in a revenge game against Hoban, but it worked out, so we will let it slide. Hoban started two tight ends as he is wont to do. Our final tally on the regular season: teams that started multiple tight ends went 12 and 14. Do I have that right? Did I do my math poorly? I'm not sure. Either way,
Don't put me on math.
12 and 14. So I guess I need to ask you this. Did we make our point with that? And do you think someone's going to roll the dice and use this strategy in the playoffs?
All right, let's go. I'll go second one first. My gut is no on the second part of the question. I looked at everyone's rosters. I
No
don't see
bye weeks to contend with,
correct. I wrote that exact thing down. No
Yeah.
bye week. Going to the first question, I mean, I wrote maybe like
Yeah, I think that's why I asked you because I think we thought it was going to be pretty decisive,
yes.
and it was not.
I sort of thought this was a dead losing strategy at first. The fact that it's close to 500 makes me feel like sort of a loss, but it was under 500. So I feel like we won, and you and I should take our wins. We don't always get the wins. We
Yes,
should
yeah, we'll take. Okay, we'll take
say
it.
we
We'll
were
take it.
right, but I think underneath the surface, we know we might have been not that right.
Yeah,
Not
we did not. Our point may not have been it may not
yeah,
have been proven like we thought it would, but we're going to
yeah.
take it as a win
I
under
think I think
500
we were
strategy.
we were right, but maybe not an exclamation point. Not an exclamation
Yes,
point. Like
yes.
we were
Okay.
right, but barely.
Barely. We'll take
Yeah.
it. We'll take it. We move on somehow. The Guru's Man Rockets rocketed up to the 3 seed despite finishing eighth in scoring and just 1 point ahead of Kess, who finished ninth in scoring. Not to mention the fact that you had a negative point differential on the season and finished eighth in my internal power rankings. Either way, you edged out Robbie by 2 points, who was then edged out by Hathaway by 2 points and missed the playoffs altogether. More on that later. Gus Edwards needed 11 points on Sunday night for Robbie to advance. He scored 9.6. There's a touchdown involved in there as well. I got to ask you, what was your level of confidence throughout that game?
It was a complete roller coaster. So if you were not, most people were probably not paying attention to Gus Edwards' 11 points. They were probably,
I was
well,
paying attention because I think
well,
I had a better chance to get in if Gus
okay,
Edwards. I was
fine.
rooting for the 11. I was rooting against you in this
Yeah, that
instance.
makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So first half, he got 4 carries for 10 yards, 2 yard run, 3 yard one, 1 yard run, 4 yard run. That was his entire first half. I
Before, let's
felt
back up a little. Heading into the night, did you think he was going to get it? Yes or
I
no?
didn't. I
You
didn't,
did
but
not.
I thought it was going to be close. I
Okay.
was stressed about it and I was concerned. So I
Yeah.
started off concerned. Then I watched the entire first half and saw what I just described.
A lot of
I also
Kamani
saw
Vidal.
how much Vidal was playing.
Yeah.
I was like, this is. I went and took a shower. I was like, I feel great. I walked away from the television. I came back and I was up like 4 points. And I was thinking, what happened? Well, I missed the first drive of the third quarter, which was a touchdown drive, 3 yard run, 7 yard run, 3 yard touchdown. So on those 3 plays, he eclipsed his first half rushing yards and got the touchdown. And now I'm back to sweating it out. So it
Did
was
he
a
get
roller
another
coaster.
carry? Did he even get another carry?
He did. Rest of game, he got 2 touches. One was a 10 yard gain. 14 play drive. He had 1 touch for 10 yards in the fourth quarter. They had 1 possession in the fourth quarter. Thank God for the
Yeah.
Chiefs. Fantastic fourth quarter from the Chiefs, not giving up the ball. So yeah, he literally. I mean, it was always like this. Like then I felt great about it towards the end, even though I was only up two. Vidal was playing the whole game. He was barely getting any touches, but the 1 touch he got on that drive, he ran for 10 yards. Now it's a 2 point game. Now I'm
Yeah.
freaking out again.
Yeah.
So I was very much rooting for the Chiefs to go for it, which they did, and really try to get that first down. So it was a roller
Unbelievable.
coaster,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tough break for Robbie, as we
yeah,
will
tough
continue
move
to
for him.
point out throughout this podcast. Just tough break after tough break. Game of the week was probably Pete against Zans. They were
Yeah,
tied heading into Sunday night. Came down to Isaiah Pacheco for Pete against T. Higgins for Zans. Pacheco got nine. He only got 7.1 points, excuse me, on
right.
Sunday. And after that, the champ was pretty heavily favored to win. But on a night in which Joe Burrow threw for 369 yards and 3 touchdowns, Higgins could only muster 3.3 fantasy points. Had Higgins scored four more points, Robbie would be in the playoffs. Zans and Pete will meet again next week. We'll get into that a little bit later in the pod here. Zans has now lost 3 out of 4 going into the playoffs. Would you think that is good news or bad news?
I'm just gonna say it's great news. As you know, I no longer say negative things about Zanzarel on this podcast. So I would say only
I
good
was
things about
honestly,
him.
I was originally just going to ask you, like, should we be concerned about the champ? And I'm like, there's no way he's going to say anything negative. So I had to do some digging.
This is great news. Chalk this up as great news, not good or bad, but great. No way Allen does that again. No way Higgins does that again. I love it for Zans. I love it.
The reason I asked you this is because I'm like, has anyone ever like stumbled into the playoffs and then turned it on in the playoffs and gone on to win? Oh, yes. Teams have done this in the past. Walsh in 2019 lost 3 out of 4, went on to win the title. Robbie lost 2 out of his last 3 in 2020, went on to win the title. Yours truly, the Commish, went 1-3 down the stretch, still hoisted the trophy in 2022. Very common in the last 5 years anyway, for
Interesting.
teams to absolutely fall backwards into the playoffs, turn it on, win 3 in a row, 2 in a row, whatever the case may be, and win that trophy. So Zans, he potentially has this league right where he wants them, not winning the regular season, which he hasn't done since 2011, but still is the champ until he is beaten in the playoffs. And he has a pretty good chance. A rematch with Pete. We'll get into that in a little bit. Last game to mention, Hath routed the commish 135 to 99 thanks to 30 points from Joe Burrow on Monday night. And that was crucial because Hathaway finished the season with 2 more points than Robbie, and thus he moves on to the playoffs. Robbie goes home. For those of you who were watching the game, I guess for those of you who were not watching the game, the Bengals were marching down late fourth quarter for what everyone assumed would be a game-winning field goal, especially if you had Cowboys plus 5.5 like I did. But they're marching down. Looks like it's going to be a game-winning field goal. And then Jamar Chase catches an out route, evades a Cowboy defender, runs 40 yards for a touchdown with 1 minute left on the clock. Without that touchdown, Robbie makes the playoffs. Hathaway does not. What a league. That play gets Hathaway in, knocks Robbie out. Robbie had like 7 different chances. Everything had to fall wrong for him and did to keep him out of the playoffs. Furthermore, Hathaway beat Robbie earlier this season by, you guessed it, 2 points. That was back in week 4. That was Hathaway's only win in the first half. He was dead in the water, 1-6, made a trade with the commish to acquire Jonathan Brooks because he was looking ahead to next season already. Having heard what you have now heard, Guru, which team do you think has been luckier this season? Your team or Hathaway's team?
This was first of all, I mean, just gut wrenching for Robbie. I actually, even though it helped me, I feel terrible. I was on my bold predictions that Robbie would make the playoffs, and like you said, it literally we needed like 7 things to happen, and they all happened. It was just a tough break, Robbie. Best one of the best appearances on the pod all year. Just we did him dirty here, Robbie. We feel for you. We did you dirty. I think this is an easy question. I think it's mine. I felt like I think we all did. I say I, but you and I both felt like the Hathaway turnaround was coming. Like you could feel it, right? It was always turning. Really, the only question was, did he run out of runway? Right? Like we all felt the turn coming, but it's like, gosh, there's only so many weeks left. He's 1-6. Like, is there enough time? I think if the season was 20 weeks, we all would have felt really good that the turnaround was coming when it was coming.
Hmm.
I was worried that he was going to run out of time. So I think it wasn't as lucky for him as it was like just stuff started turning around. We both had him pretty high on our preseason list of how good the team was. So I think mine's luckier. I don't even think it's that close.
I thought that was going to be the case, and then I looked into this. You had 2 wins by scoring less than 100 points. You had a 2 point win in week 14, but you also had a 3 point loss in week 1. So that kind of
It's a
balances
bad.
out a little bit for me. Hathaway, he went 4-0 starting multiple tight ends. I think he's the only team that started 2 tight ends multiple times and did not lose. He had that late Burrow touchdown to edge out Robbie on points, as we mentioned. He had a 2 point win over Robbie, like we mentioned in week 4. He also had a 3 point win in week 8. I think the answer might be Hathaway. I mean, yours from a pure numbers perspective,
Yeah.
finishing eighth in points, basically ninth by 1 point, and being the 3 seed, like that is incredibly fortunate. But Hathaway had a lot of things go his way despite the poor start, which you kind of have to have things go your way if you're going to start 1-6 and make the playoffs. I guess, there isn't a real obvious answer there, is at least the way I see it. You think it's obviously you. I think it could go either way. But you guys are both in the playoffs,
Were
and we will
those
be talking about both of your teams right now because we're just going to dive right into a quarterfinal preview. And lo and behold, you two face each other. It's Guru's Man Rockets, the 3 seed. You guys are 8-6 against the 6 seed. Sun God's Disciples are 7-7. So, Guru, I asked you to do a little homework, as I tend to do. I need
Yep.
one player on each team that you think will potentially swing this matchup. I also did my own homework assignment, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how we compare on these previews. Okay, for this one, I think it is a battle of the questionables. So we've got Bucky Irving. It's a one of the mandatory things in this podcast is that we talk about Bucky Irving.
Pro
We
Bucky
have
Room
to get in the
Podcast.
pre-show
Everyone knows
meeting,
it.
and we have
Yeah.
to get in Bucky Irving, and we have to say
Yep.
something bad about Steve.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we get a chance to do
Check, check,
that.
and check, I think.
Check and check.
Yeah.
So I think it's Bucky Irving versus Lad McConkey in this matchup. Both are questionable. Lad didn't play last week. Bucky was kind of in and out, and they're giving Rashad White the touches, and they seem to be kind of conservative with him right now. I think the way that those guys are used, play and or don't play, is going to be the key matchup in this particular semi quarterfinal.
Interesting. So for me, I have Khalil Shakir for half. His
Yeah,
long touchdown on Sunday was the death blow to my playoff hopes. Scored a season high 19 points. He has only scored double digit in back-to-back weeks once this season. Now he does play the banged up Lions defense in what could be a shootout. So that could go either way. Hathaway's the type he may listen to this and now bench Shakir just because he said he's only did back-to-back double-digit points once in the whole season. But who knows? We'll see how that one goes. That could be a shootout with the Lions and Bills. For you, Guru, I have Jonathan Taylor. He's going up against an awesome Broncos defense. He's a guy you have to play. Like he's your stud. If you bench him, I rip you when he has a big game. Like he's in your lineup. You got no choice. But are we going to get the 11 carries for 35 yards version of Jonathan Taylor that we saw in week 13 against the Lions? Or are we going to get the 25 carries for 96 yards and a receiving touchdown version that we saw this past week against the Pats? So you're backed into a corner. You have to start him. He's your guy. But going up against a tough defense, so that could kind of go either way. You may have to get lucky with a touchdown to swing that matchup with Taylor. Who wins? You or Half?
So it's funny you mentioned that. I put up that I like Hath in this game, riding the wave of getting in the way that he did, and I specifically wrote that I don't like the matchup for Jonathan Taylor. So I was looking at that as well. Those were probably the next two guys I would have picked. I had toyed with Khalil Shakir
Yeah.
as well for that one for Hathaway, but to me, between the bad matchup for Jonathan Taylor and the health issues for Bucky and for Trey McBride, I'm worried. I don't like the tight end situation for me if McBride doesn't play. Like you said, I pretty much have to play Jonathan Taylor. And if he's healthy, and if he's not questionable and starts, I kind of have to play Bucky Irving, even though there's a good chance he just doesn't get a lot of touches because of that health. So I like Half in this one for all those reasons. I assume you probably do too.
Yeah, I'm leaning Hath too. I think the problem you face is that this Lions Bills matchup, I expect there to be a lot of points, and he has Amon-Ra St. Brown, he has Shakir, and he has David Montgomery.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be beneficial for him. So I think it is wise to lean half, despite you being projected to score a little less than one more point. But definitely leaning
But if
half.
you look at that, and that's one thing I was looking at too, Stantic, like they've got Jonathan Taylor projected for way too many points. They've got a couple guys in my lineup, I think, that they've projected too high. I have to play
Yeah.
those guys to your point, but I don't see them scoring the numbers they put up. The only thing I'll say for that Bills Lions games, I do feel like there's a game or two every year where everyone's expecting like this massive, massive high scoring
And
game
it's
and then
10-3.
done.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
kind of hoping it's that
Yeah.
game. You're
Hmm.
talking about my luck. Maybe I get to keep going there, but that's not a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah. And hopefully Cooper Cup puts up a big number on Thursday night to get you
Thursday night's
started
a
in the
big
right
night.
direction. Yeah,
Big
gonna
night.
need that out of him. Our other quarterfinal matchup is a rematch of what we saw this week. It is Slim Pickens at the champ Zanzarella, 7-7, 4 seed against Georgie's Giants, the 5 seed, also 7-7. Same questions for you. Give you a player each side. Who do you think is going to swing the matchup or could potentially swing the matchup? Go ahead.
Yeah, so for Zans, I think it's actually a decision, which is I wrote the third string running backs for Zans. Okay, so he's got Sincere McCormick and he's got this Abanikata guy, the guy that came from, I'm not going to be able to say his name right, but the guy that came over from the Jets.
Yeah, you nailed it. Actually, it's a Bonaconda.
Okay, perfect, nailed it.
You just call him Izzy.
Izzy. So I think I don't like. So right now, Zans has MVS. He's got Valdez Scantling in the flex spot. I don't like that spot for him at all. I don't think he should play him. I think there needs to be a gamble here from Zans. If we find out that one of these guys is going to be the starter because of the health of all the other running backs on those rosters, I kind of like the idea of sliding one of those guys in and MVS out. And then to me, that is the swing player for Zans' team. If one of those guys can go off, be the starter, get all the touches, which is very possible, right? In both those backfields, if that happens. So to me, that's the swing for him. I want MVS out and I want to gamble on one of those guys, assuming that one of them does end up with that good situation. For Pete, I think there's two answers here. One is Pacheco. Does Pacheco turn the corner? He's back, obviously. He's slowly getting a little bit better. It was like 7 1 week, 9 the next week. Like, can he turn the corner and go back to early season Isaiah Pacheco? That's a big, big swing for him. I think the other answer for Pete is Zay Flowers. He's such a boomer bust guy, if you look. So he's had 4 weeks under 6 points and 5 weeks over 15 points. So which Zay Flowers do you get? I feel like those are the two big swings for Pete. And for me, it's really this decision for Zans. I don't like MVS, and whoever he puts in there is going to swing it for him.
Normally, early in the season, when we do something like stud of the week, I provide multiple answers in case we have the same answers. I did not do that this week. Maybe I'm out of habit, who knows? But for Zans, I had MVS. I have questions for you. Who is playing quarterback for the Saints? Is it
I wrote
Spencer
that too.
Rattler? I have no idea.
It's a
MVS
it's a
scored 24 points in week 10. Since then, he's continued to score less and less and less. 15 in week 11, had a bye in week 12, 10 in week 13, 7 this past week. Big risk. MVS is a big risk reward kind of player. I don't like the decision either. I think And I don't have any concrete information on this yet, but I don't think Ken Walker is going to play. So I think Zans is just going to slide Zach Charbonnet in there, who had a monster week. I think this MVS situation, who we both had as the correct answer here, I think it's going to resolve itself.
Yeah, I think so
And
too.
and I think if for whatever reason Ken Walker does play and Charbonnet is kind of relegated to the bench, I think you got to throw McCormick in there. The problem with Abonaconda is that the 49ers playing Thursday, so I don't think he's going to
Thursday.
have enough information there. But I would wait out information on Charbonnet. He'd be my number one option. And if he can't go, or if Ken Walker can go, excuse me, then I would go with McCormick, who plays Monday night. Repeat, I also
Sounds
had Pacheco,
yeah.
gradually building back up into his form from last year. 7 carries 2 weeks ago, 14 this past week. I think he's going to be back this week. I think we're going to see the Pacheco we remember from last season. I think he's going to get double-digit points repeat against the Browns. Who wins? Zans
What,
repeat.
what do you think? So what do you think about this though, real quick, and I'll give you who wins. But
Sure.
if if um if we do, we'll know the San Francisco, I think, the running back situation on Thursday.
That's
So
right. We'll know if
if
Garendo's playing
Garendo's
or if
out, if he's out, do you go with it? Do
I
you go with
don't.
that, or
I
you
don't
don't? You're
because
gonna
there's
hold
also
out
this
with
Patrick
Charbonnet.
Taylor's in the mix as well. So I don't think Abanaconda is going to have like the clear-cut number one lead role in that backfield. I think it's too risky. I think I'd wait it out. I'd rather have Charbonnet over him anyway, and then I'm
Yeah, I
fine with
agree.
McCormick on Monday night as well.
I had Charbonnet in parentheses on my little
Yeah,
write up, and I also had who the heck's playing quarterback. I literally wrote who's playing quarterback for the
yeah,
Saints.
exactly.
Okay, so who wins? I think this Zan's decision really is the key. I think that if one of those running back situations resolves itself to your point, and there's a clear starter, and he plays that person over MVS, I like Zans. I like him in this matchup. I think if he goes with MVS or the running back situation is muddy and he picks one of them in a muddy situation, I like Pete. I think this is
Interesting.
literally the swing decision.
I mean, they are both projected for 121
Crazy.
points. It could not be
Yes.
tighter.
Yes.
For me, I think Thursday is going to be a pretty big indicator for Pete with Debo and Kittle both going against the Rams. I'm going to go with Zans here, though. I'm pro Zans. He supports my career. I support him. I like Chuba Hubbard against the Cowboys, and I like Derrick Henry against the Giants. I think both of those matchups are favorable for Zans. I'm going to lean him here, but they gave us a great show this past week. Hopefully, we get another one this week. And we move on to our final segment tonight. I can't believe we didn't mention this yet, but you guys are welcome. We're doing another podcast. My team's been eliminated. I'm still here. No more questions about my ethics or whatever it was.
Mailbag will be empty this
Yeah,
week.
yeah,
Thankfully, we don't have
exactly.
to go too
All the
long.
haters out
Thanks for
there.
doing this. What
You're
a hero.
welcome. Yeah. What
Not
what
all heroes
an
wear
honor
capes.
it is here to provide you guys free content, even though my team no longer has a chance to win this thing. Fill in the blank, final segment. The MVP of the regular season was blank.
I mean, I think it has to be Jamar Chase, right?
Yeah.
Best player on the best team. Pains us to keep saying nice things about Steve, but it's Jamar Chase.
It's definitely Chase. He's got 73 more points than the second place wide receiver, who's actually Justin Jefferson after the big week this week. I didn't think he was having that great a season last week, and I looked and he was fourth among wide receivers. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's having a decent season. I'm just used to him being awesome. It's definitely Chase, but I will mention that Pete's duo of Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley. Saquon has 38 more points than the second place running back. They are probably 2 and 3 in some order on my list. I think the recency bias of that huge outing by Josh Allen is probably sticks in my mind. Um, so yeah, but it's
Gotta be Chase.
obviously Chase.
Yeah.
Interested to see where you go with this one. The team that would create the best storyline if they win the title would be blank.
I think as obvious as Jamar Chase was, I think there's a right answer here too. I think it's Hathaway.
I have
Uh,
two answers. Hathaway is my number one answer.
yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer for me. I mean, obviously, like snuck in by 2 points, 1-6 start, has never won before. I think to your point, and you mentioned this in an earlier pod, like, would you have to redo a 30 for 30 about Hathaway? I think you would, and I think that makes him the best storyline.
Yeah, I literally wrote that there are only two correct answers. It's Hathaway for me. He went from 1-6, and if he goes to a title, that would be absurd. Granted, Pete once did this. He went 0-6 to a title, so it wouldn't be unprecedented. But with the monkey on Hathaway's back for never winning a title before, the 30 for 30, all that stuff, his story would definitely be the best. The second best storyline for me, and I'm surprised you didn't go here. I thought you would sniff this one out. The second best storyline is you beating Steve in the finals and restoring order to the world. That is a clear number two.
Good point. And
Disappointed in you for not getting that one.
you mentioned this earlier, but it'd been almost a decade since he had beaten me in a regular season matchup. I wonder if it ever has even happened that he won both regular season matchups, which did happen this year. So Yeah, you're right. That's actually a really good storyline.
Yeah,
I did not think of that.
yeah.
I thought of Hathaway right away. I guess he's on my mind with the matchup and obviously what had gone down over the last couple of days. So, but you're right. That's a great answer too.
Yeah, I failed to mention this earlier, but Hathaway is technically going for a podcast sweep here, having beaten me in the final week of the season, and now facing you in the first round of the playoffs. He could pull off the podcast sweep. So Hathaway's got a lot on the line here. Next question for you: Kess scoring 140 points or more in each of the final 3 weeks is blank.
I put promising. This felt like a good little Mad Lib, by the way, or Ad Lib, whatever they
Yeah,
would call
there
it.
you go.
Mad Lib. Yeah, I think it's promising. I mean, I think it kind of looked pretty clear a few weeks back that Kess was going to be one of the teams out along with Hoban. So this is a great way to end the season. It's kind of like what Hoban was talking about on the text chain, where he's put up a bunch of points, still got to be the last seed, which is all great. So I think it's promising for Kess. I'd love to have been able to say that I put 140 up 3 weeks in a row. I don't know that happened all year for me. So yeah, good for him. Promising for Kess.
Yeah, I did a similar word. I said encouraging. Cass has a great core and should be able to add to that with the number 2 pick, the number 12 pick in the draft. I mean, he's got Puka, Devon Achan, Brian Thomas Jr., and Purdy. He also got Caleb Williams sitting there in case he ever turns into something. So Kess's team is on the up and up. So um, he also scored one less point than you, and
That's
he's the 9 seed and you're the 3 seed. So for as lucky as you got, he
pretty.
obviously did
Yeah.
not get any luck. He was very unlucky to be in this situation. So yeah, promising, encouraging, I think are both pretty on par for Kess. This one I have the answer to, so I won't be answering it. I'll just be asking you. The team with the longest active streak of missing the playoffs is blank.
All right, so I got the Dwyer question right. I kind of fumbled the next trivia question. So I'm looking to go 2 for 3 here. I'm feeling pretty confident about this answer. I think it's Robbie.
Yeah, kind of the theme of the podcast here. It is Robbie. He has not made the playoffs since he won the title in 2020. And it's just like such a bummer for him after that 3-1 start. Came in the pot, everything was going his way. And just to see it all crumble in the final week like it did is just kind of heartbreaking. I do have a follow-up that I did not send you, but do
Oh,
you know who has the longest streak of making the playoffs in consecutive seasons, active streak?
that's a good question. I'm gonna say me.
You are tied
Okay.
for this title 4 seasons, or excuse me, 5 seasons in a row now. You've made the playoffs in 2020, 21, 22, 23, and now 24. That is five. The other person that is tied with you, any guesses?
Gotta think it's either Zans or Pete. So I'm gonna go Zans.
It is Ants. Look at you. Well done. Proud
A
of
good
you.
comeback for me today. Good
A
comeback.
good comeback. Yeah, Pete missed the playoffs in 2022, so that kind of eliminated him from the proceedings there. Um, Final question. The Sports Edge Fantasy Football League champion in 2024 will be blank.
I think it's gonna be Hathaway. I think it is.
Wow.
I think we're going to get that storyline. I think this is a unique. We've had the same storyline with Hathaway for a lot of years in a row. Really, really good. Blows it. This year he's scrapping to get in, right? It feels like one of those classic stories where that team that's been playing those playoff games in the end of the season just kind of keeps going and makes a run. I think it's going to be Hathaway.
You know what? I have not actually uh, answered this question yet. I
Okay.
thought something would come to me, but Hathaway kind of knocked me off my socks there with that answer. I'm gonna go. Give me Zans. Why not? I'm Team Zans. I was gonna say Pete, or I was gonna say Steve. I don't want to say Steve. Pod Nemesis. I can't do it, but I figure he's the 1 seed, led the league in scoring. Got a lot of guys I like on the team, and plenty of them were on my team in the past. You're welcome for Jamar Chase, but I'm going to go Zans, winning back to back. I'm trying to think the last time someone went back to back. I believe it must have been Pete in 2015, 2016. So it's been a long time since someone has gone back to back. I'll root for that storyline, which I guess we probably could have mentioned when talking about teams that would have the best storyline if they won. But I think it is Hathaway. That's probably the right answer by you. In terms of best storyline, if he
Yeah.
actually wins it, it's going to be a lot of work for me, guys. That's the thing. Like I'm doing this one pro bono. My team's out of it. I'm still doing a podcast. Hathaway wins a title. I got to do a whole nother 30 for 30. I mean,
It's a good point.
unbelievably amount of time
You got to be
I'm
rooting
investing
against
into
him.
this
It's more
podcast.
work for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have
So
to be
I'm rooting
rooting
against Hathaway strictly based on the workload that I don't want to
Number
put on
one entry
myself.
right now for you is Steve. Number two is Hathaway. You don't
Yeah.
want
Oh
either.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
one
don't
A,
I don't
one B.
want that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because he beat me too. Yeah, no, that we're out on that. But it should be exciting. Only two games to watch this week. We won't have too much to talk about next week. If we even do a podcast next week, we'll see.
I
That
think
might
we
be
will do one.
dependent on whether or not you win.
No, no, I'm here for it,
You think
Stanzik. I
so?
think we gotta finish the swing this year.
Oh
We
man,
uh, we cut it short. There's only a couple weeks left. It's not a big
only
deal.
a couple of weeks. They may
And
be
it's gonna
like
be way less content. We'll just go over the
it
we'll
may
go over
be
the
5 minute
matchups.
podcasts in the future. Maybe.
Let's just do it. Let's
Who
do it.
knows? Either way, Guru, thank you as always for doing
So
this.
much more work reading all the emails. I don't want to read the emails. It's too much.
Yeah, it's a lot more work and you got to write them too. It's unbelievable. Thank you to everybody for watching and good luck in the playoffs.